During the 80s and 90s, films from Hong Kong were gaining traction, with an explosion of filmmakers being put on the global stage and seeing a lot of critical praise all across the globe, in large part due to them expanding beyond the martial arts films that they are known for, and adopting more modern settings, but still keeping the same kind of cathartic action involved in the films. Many well-known names emerged from this scene, such as Jackie Chan, Wong Kar-wai, and John Woo, all of whom have gone on to influence generations of filmmakers globally. In this video, we are going to be discussing one filmmaker who I believe is often overshadowed from that prolific era of Hong Kong filmmaking, and why his films deserve a larger spotlight than they do. And that filmmaker's name is Johnnie To. And in this video, I will explain why I think his unique style creates a different kind of catharsis from many other filmmakers with his use of his filmmaking, and how this affects his films on every level, making movies that break a lot of the conventions seen in modern action movies that achieve the same impact, as well as how he manages to translate that style of filmmaking into other genres, ranging from drama to romantic comedies and even a musical? To illustrate why I see Johnnie To and his films as so different, in my opinion, to others, we have to discuss one of his contemporaries from Hong Kong, who I have mentioned earlier, John Woo. Woo built his action scenes around the chaos of the gunfight, where the viewer sees how it spirals out of control with fast-paced shots and frantic editing, deliberately choosing to focus shots on individual actions of each person involved without giving clear placement of where they are, to evoke the chaotic mess that a gunfights devolve in, which can feel a bit disoriented, but that adrenaline that it creates is something that even John Woo addresses and recognizes and even plays with. Johnnie To, on the other hand, when faced with a similar situation, manages to reel in the chaos by slowing down the pace of the overall fight, just enough to make you feel the weight of every shot fired. He also has a keen eye of keeping the viewer aware of where things are happening in relation to one another, mainly who is shooting at whom and what is happening where, and he does this with the use of master shots that create a bigger picture of what's happening, but also still allowing for a focus to be made on important moments inside of the scene, doing so without losing the whole picture. Take the mall shootout in his 1999 movie, The Mission, where 5 bodyguards have to protect their boss against assailants attacking them from various positions inside this mall. The scene, in particular, allows the viewer to get a look at where each of the individual bodyguards are focusing on with their sights and what they are aiming at. This, in turn, creates a layered and complex fight scene that constantly engages the viewer despite its more meticulous pace. The tension that results from this emphasizes each individual part as a key action and continually keeps everyone engaged throughout the whole fight. This is all helped by the film's dedication to that focus and choosing slower music and having actors who maintain that laser focus as well, creating something that's more well composed and measured in its action that has the same level of gratification as someone like John Woo, who has a faster paced action scene. Now that I've kind of set up how his style works in action scenes, the question becomes then, how does this affect the rest of his films? And with this, I would like to talk about one of his more well-known films and its sequel, Election and Triad Election, a film which centers around a conflict of a triad election and the warring factions vying for leadership, and has no guns in it whatsoever. While this breaking of convention in the gangster film mold may seem like a gimmick, showcases perfectly where exactly his filmmaking chops are and how his trademarks work outside of an action-oriented film, transporting them into a complex drama and all of the various moving parts in it. The plot revolves around who will become the chairman of the Wolingxing Triad. Would it be the cold and calculating Locke, or the hot-headed and impulsive Big D? The central framework of their conflict is built upon and is also in the sequel, the discussion between the senior members of the triad and how they feel about each candidate and each action taking place outside of their meetings. The film proceeds to showcase these individual actions and each of the individual parts in the story, giving them equal weight and equal importance. This comes from Locke reacts to something, how Big D react to something, and how even the senior members react to something. Needless to say, it gets really complicated really fast, with the actions that are, at some points, hard to follow. And the film acknowledges this to some extent. There's one particular scene in which two characters are fighting over the baton that symbolizes the passing of leadership in the triad, that resolves itself once they both receive a phone call saying that they have to meet and pass the baton to the other one, kind of showcasing his awareness of the complexity of the situation. However, I think he manages to resolve this pretty cleanly and make sure the viewer isn't completely lost on who is doing what. I think that having the baton exist as a central drive for the characters also simplifies, because it makes you, the viewer, understand that throughout all this chaos, there's one thing that will make everything become controlled, and so we observe what happens in relation to that one thing. So when conversations set up actions that revolve around it, it pays off, and we see how it pays off in order to get that baton. This mimics kind of how he handles action scenes, by giving a central frame for the viewer to understand what's going on and who is where with each action, and each action having its own importance. But instead of being a single gunshot within a single gunfight, it is drawn out into a battle of wits, and impactful small decisions pit two people against each other. In the first, it pits the rigid control of Locke against the chaotic rebellion of Big D. In the sequel, it's Locke against Jimmy, who is also equally as calculating as Locke is. All of which kind of is set up against the backdrop of all these traditions within the triad, and exists as a perfect demonstration of how he can create tension and thrills without it having fallen completely into chaos. And that is something that Johnnie To has down to a science. In conclusion, watch Johnnie To's movies. His way of shooting action and shooting movies in general, and composing movies, is incredibly refreshing to me. The way he is able to handle these different chaotic elements in his film, and the way he uses his directorial vision to control it all while delivering some of the most gripping filmmaking, is something to be admired. If you think any of what I talked about in this video is interesting to you, I hope you actively seek out his movies and help his films get a larger Western audience, so that more of his movies can get over. But that being said, I want to recommend some films that I think are key from his catalog and are widely available right now in the West. So here are some of my favorites from him in no particular order that I would recommend to anyone interested in Johnnie To. Election 1 and Election 2, Exiled, The Mission, Throwdown, Drug War, PTU, Police Tactical Unit, and also, if you want something a little silly, The Heroic Trio. I hope this video helped you find your new favorite director, because I feel that his films have been greatly overshadowed by his contemporaries from Hong Kong, and I would like to see him enter more of the modern conversation when it comes to that period. Luckily, with recent releases of his works by Criterion and Arrow Video, I think that they will help his films achieve the modern acclaim they deserve. And keep on watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.